Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. I can.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So just to introduce myself, my name is Saber. I'm the hiring associate here for ScribeAmerica in the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. market. I've been with ScribeAmerica for a little over 3 years now. And since then, I've gone from Scribe to Scribe Trainer to now I'm the hiring associate for the region. So overall, I hire for not only the emergency department, but also a few outpatient specialties in medicine. And that's my background. And actually, I did start out, like I said, as an ER scribe. So that's a little bit about me. Brooke, would you like to go next? And then Jeremy, you can introduce yourself after Brooke.
Absolutely. So, hey everyone, like Saber said, my name is Brooke. I started with ScribeAmerica just like he did about 3 years ago as an ER scribe and have moved up to trainer and then to chief scribe and then to this role. And I'll probably be moving back to chief scribe soon because I'm really excited about getting back in the clinical aspect of things. So, as far as my hiring areas, I hire for Richmond and I also hire for the Hampton Roads areas. We are looking at changing the program as far as hiring associates, so there'll probably be one person covering all of those areas pretty soon here. But right now, these are the people that cover the Virginia area, so me and Saber do.
Hey, and this is Jeremy. I also started out as an ER scribe about 4 years ago. Also rose up through the ranks as trainer, scribe ambassador, ended up as a recruiter. I recruit primarily now for Tennessee. Yeah, no, I'm more than willing, more than happy to be here.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Brooke and Jeremy. So I know that we have of course, with American National University being national, I know we have a few people who are from different parts of the country here. Regardless, I encourage everyone to still be able to follow up with me or Jeremy, since he's our representative here for Tennessee, and we'll be able to make sure to kind of guide you along the application process the right way. So for you today, we have a little bit of an introductory PowerPoint that I'm going to kind of do the first half here, and then Brooke is going to finish us off. And then after that, we'll be available to stay on through the rest of the hour here up to noon to field any questions you may or may not have. So I'm going to ask that if you do have any questions, you kind of hold them until the end of the PowerPoint presentation. So just a little bit about ScribeAmerica. So 2019 is our 15th year in operation. We have grown very rapidly, very quickly. We are the largest national scribe company across the United States. We have programs in all 50 states. And we've even got international. We have programs in Canada and Australia as well. So just as healthcare continues to grow and expand, and as different EMR systems start to leverage healthcare in a bunch of different ways, that's where really the concept of medical scribes is the most effective. So our goal is, doctors save lives, scribes save doctors. I always like to kind of, mention this in the PowerPoint because it really does kind of help frame kind of our role with physicians, whether it be in the emergency department or in the outpatient specialty. We recognize our everyday scribes as the heart of our company. We all share the goal in making a meaningful difference in the delivery of healthcare and helping our physicians do what they love, which is, medical decision making. They really love having those one-on-one conversations with their patients. These are our core values that we really like to build, and we start with sharing this in our PowerPoint because this is what our executives are looking for, and we really look to enforce our company culture through having these certain values in our scribes. Leadership, for example, is one of the core values that we look for in our scribes because even though you're acting as an assistant in this position to the provider, there is moments where you can take leadership of your workflow here to ensure that not only are you maximizing your workload, but also ensuring that the physicians can truly focus on the medical decision making and patient interaction. And of course, being the primary, documenter for the provider, quality driven speaks very much for itself because, of course, we want to make sure that our scribes are being held to a certain standard with their documentation, and you're not just meeting kind of the bare minimum requirements, but you're going above and beyond that in your documentation. So again, these are our core values that we look for in our scribes, and we look for you to kind of continue if we do move forward with you as a scribe, whether you've been with us for 3 months or 2 years or 3 years, however long. This is kind of the standards which we like to uphold when it comes to our scribes. So continuing on with some of our cultural expectations here. So our headquarters is based out of Florida, and really I would say everything on this slide trickles through the entire country. Really what I always like to mention with my candidates is professionalism and performance is always at the top of what we're looking for from an interview standpoint, but also this is what your provider is looking for from the scribes, right? It's very simple, but at the end of the day, if you think about it, your physicians are looking for one, can my scribe work with me in that professional medical environment? And two, can my scribe perform the tasks necessary of them so that I, a doctor, can be efficient in my workflow? That's really what we're looking for. And like I said, we're holding this standard kind of from the very beginning, which is the candidate applicant phase, which we hope some of you will be, to all the way through your entire time with our company. And of course, we share this because it's important to be in line with our vision of improving patient care through excellence in documentation, organization, and efficiency management. So what we expect from you, so I'm sure you know that this is very similar to any kind of new work environment, but we do expect all of our employees to exhibit a strong work ethic, be diligent and attentive to the physician and their documentation needs, be responsible for the work that you're doing, be punctual, be a loyal member of the team. And I truly do say team because across all of our facilities, healthcare is not just the physicians and the scribes. You have your nurses, technicians, registration staff, patients and their families, volunteers. All these different people are part of the healthcare team. So we're looking for, again, scribes to identify what their role is and able to execute it to a very high level. I want to touch on professionalism and maturity a little bit because this is something that, as I mentioned before, our physicians really do take into account. So showing up to work up on time, showing up to work in uniform. When you're showing up to work, are you in the proper state of mind to work for the next 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, or did you pull an all-nighter? Are you fatigued? Are you hangry? Are you worrying about a quiz or exam or, things outside of work? And is that going to negatively affect your work, right? These are all things to be cognizant of within this position. I always like to also mention that positive body language is important, right? Active listening skills, right? You're going to have to be able to work with your providers and you're going to need to be focused on the work that you're doing. And of course, you never want to, speak to patients in a very aggressive manner. You don't ever want to, yell at them or, make them feel bad for them coming in for this or that to see the doctor. Again, that's not your role. That's not what we're looking for in our scribes. So this is our leadership structure. Now, this may vary kind of region to region, but I'll just kind of mention to you what our general format here is in Virginia. So each site has a chief scribe, whether it be the ER or the private offices. This is going to be your day-to-day supervisor. This is the person that does things like scheduling, IT issues, payroll, if you want to pick up shifts, if you need to reduce your clinical shifts. God forbid, if you have an issue with one of the scribes or the physicians, this will be kind of your day-to-day supervisor. Next, we have the quality assurance associate. So this person, again, in Virginia is in charge of two things for us. One, they're going to be your liaison through the training process with our company, which Brooke will talk about here in the next few slides. And then also they're going to be the quality control for our site. So they look at your medical charting at the end of every month you're with us and let you know if it is meeting the standard or if it's not meeting the standard and kind of how to make sure that, again, you're meeting the quality standards so that, of course, we can be doing our job the right way. On this slide is the regional manager position. So this person is in charge of multiple sites, either across a state or a few states, and they're going to be kind of our more higher up leadership. And then on a more national level, we have our director of operations who oversee them as well, and not just manage sites, but also have a few more administrative responsibilities. So all questions you do have, if we do move forward with you for this position, once you do get assigned to a site, should go to that chief scribe position. So what this job entails, so for those of you that read the flyer description here for the event today, a lot of this position does surround medical documentation and allowing the providers to be much more efficient. But the thing that's different, I would say, about medical scribing as opposed to medical transcription is that medical scribing is documentation in real time, whereas transcription is kind of after the fact or at the end of the day. This position is not like that. You are documenting as the physician is going to see patients, as they're going room to room, so that by the end of the day, when it's time to go home, everyone can go home on time, right? You want to go home on time, your physician wants to go home on time. So we want to make sure to kind of, justify having a scribe there, and that's really the best way to do it. So documentation is done in real time, all right? And You're being that assistant to the provider. And outside of the realm of documentation, I would say that this may entail things like volunteer tasks, phone calls. Your providers may rely upon you to, go into the patient room again and ask them what the name of a specialist is, how they're feeling after a medication. Maybe it may entail your physician asking you to go into the room and write down the vital signs on the monitor that the patient's on, or things of that nature. So yes, I would say that documentation is a heavy portion of it, but just as in this position, multitasking, adaptability, communication, all these things are kind of things that will help you succeed in this position. And as I already mentioned, these are some of the things that you help the providers really do much more efficiently in the emergency department. And these are some responsibilities you may have to do as a medical scribe. When it comes to our documentation, these are the things that we are responsible for. Again, each site has its own variation of an EMR system, that's electronic medical record system. So some of these you will see will auto-populate for you in your workflow, so you won't necessarily have to kind of free text all this in. Other facilities, sometimes you will need to do it because those templates aren't set up that way. But this is a pretty good list here of things that you will be responsible for as a scribe to either document or keep an eye on, so that, again, we can get things moving either in the emergency department or in the outpatient setting. But of course, before we get you into this process, we're going to train you, right? We don't want to just throw our people, our applicants in this process. So next, I'm going to review with you kind of the 3-phase training process, and then Brooke is going to talk a little bit more about kind of what each of the 3 parts consist of. But in general, it's a classroom training phase, then a clinical training phase, and then a 90-day evaluation period.
Okay, just to introduce myself again, in case anybody jumped on that wasn't on before, my name is Brooke, and I'm the hiring associate for the Southern Richmond areas. Classroom training is going to be the first step of the process, but you're really learning this material as you go throughout your training process as well. So this is going to be kind of the basic medical terminology, maybe related to your specialty that you are going into. So if you're going into ER, you're going to be taught general ER medical terminology. If you're going into outpatient, we're going to teach you general outpatient terminology. But with outpatient, we have a little bit of a special process there. You're going to be specialized in whatever specialty you go into. So outpatient sites will be like dermatology, pediatrics. So we're going to not only teach you general medical terminology, but also the specifics of your specialty, so you understand the specifics of pediatrics or dermatology. So what it's really teaching you is the basis of the things that you need to understand, know, be able to hear, and relate to before you actually get in and start using it, which is during the clinical training process. So classroom training, I've heard it called mini medical school. I've heard it called mini nursing school. There's going to be a lot of information thrown at you at once. I don't see people struggle through this process very much. The reason why I don't is because the people that are interested in these jobs have been students. So they know how to study, they know how to get material down, they know what's expected of them. So this should be kind of one of the most fun parts of training for you. As you go through, you will be going through quizzes and examinations to make sure that you retain the information. We don't want to send anyone into clinical training, which is the next step, that doesn't understand the basic medical terminology. That would be really difficult. If you don't understand the language, how are you going to speak it and type it and understand it? So the next step is clinical training. So for clinical training, you're going to be working one-on-one with a trainer scribe. It says master scribe on this PowerPoint, but I tend to hear trainer scribes more frequently in that general aspect of things. And then for clinical training, you'll actually hear it called floor training as well. So clinical training, floor training, same really basis here. And what you're going to be doing is learning how to be a scribe step by step. So first day, you'll do mostly shadowing, but then at the end of the day, you'll write a couple of charts. The next day, you'll be doing 25% of the notes. And so there really is a learning curve there. This does tend to be one of the more difficult parts of the process because you are applying yourself. It can be really difficult working with, a new team, new people that you've never met before, but always relay that frustration or concerns to your team. They really do want you to succeed. We don't. I know that I don't, and I'm sure that Sabra doesn't hire anyone that we don't see making it through that training process. We believe in you guys if we've hired you, and so we want you to get through that process. Clinical training is the part where you get to meet the providers, start writing notes, start being an actual scribe, and so we're going to slowly wean you off the trainer so that at the end of that clinical training portion, you are working on your own. And then the next step is a 90-day evaluation period. Now, what this is to me is a buffer period. So in medicine, and you'll notice if you ever volunteered or things like that, there's going to be something new every day. We're not going to be able to teach you every possible scenario, every possible thing that you're going to run into in the ER or in an outpatient setting. And so this 90-day evaluation period is that buffer for us to be very vigilant on your notes, for us to be looking to make sure that everything we taught you in training is consistent, but that also that we are working with you for any new situations that you might come into contact with. So I personally went through ER training, and by the time of my clinical training, I had never seen a code before. And that's just not something that we can schedule. We can't say, this is day 5, you're looking good, we're going to see a code today. Like, that's not how medicine works. And so I was probably 2 or 3 months after my training when I saw my first code. And so it was really helpful to have my chief scribes looking over my notes more thoroughly, have my quality associate going over those notes and providing me with feedback when I am, not necessarily still, being babied as a new scribe. So this period is really to help you learn and to grow. This is not for us to catch you doing things that are wrong. This is for us to help you become the best scribe that you can be. And then throughout this whole process, so clinical training, classroom training, 90-day evaluation period, you are paid throughout that time. Okay, so rigorous training, and I think I've mentioned this throughout the other parts of the training, but this is definitely difficult. With any section of medicine that you're thinking of going into, whether it be nursing or PA school or medical school or dental or anything like that, you are going to have a period of tough learning. So there's going to be kind of that curve of learning, and to get past that is really important. We do have a lot of people that struggle to make it through the program. I would say that I personally also struggled to make it through the program, but that it made me a better person to, show up to work every day. Sometimes it was hard, but to be able to see myself going from knowing pretty much no medical terminology to having this vast, extensive knowledge to not only understand the medical terms, but to apply it was really rewarding. So see yourself making it through it and you'll be fine. Just go in with that attitude that it is going to be difficult. It's going to be something that you have to work through. So commitment. I'm sure that throughout the process of screening candidates, we typically go very much in detail into this with our email screens, phone screens, talking to you on the phone when you're a new candidate. But in general, we do require 2 years part-time or 1 year full-time. And the reason that we do that is because our training period is extensive. We do have an extensive amount of time that we spend training new scribes. And so we don't want you to leave after 6 months, and then that wouldn't help you and it wouldn't help us either. So we do have these kind of commitments set up so that it benefits both parties, because that training period is so extensive. Shifts, like Sabra mentioned earlier, are going to be 8 to 12-hour shifts. Some people have never worked these kinds of long hour shifts in their life, and so this is a really good way to kind of get introduced to the medical field. Almost every part of the medical field is going to have those long shifts. And nursing students, nurses, doctors are all going to work 12-hour shifts. And so being able to do that is going to be really important. Typically, you're going to work with one provider. That being said, every site is very unique. And I think that is something that any of us that have worked with ScribeAmerica can speak to. If we've worked at one site or a different site, is that every site is going to be very unique, how they work with scribes, the providers, and how they choose to use us as scribes. And so that tends to be our standard, but you might run into situations that are different. The 6 to 8 mandatory classroom training, we talked about that. That's the classroom training portion of things. And again, we want to make sure that you understand the medical terminology before we push you into the environment where you need to use it. And the mandatory quarterly employee meeting, it's just a fancy way of saying staff meeting. So you're going to meet with everybody that you work with to talk about things that we're doing well, things that we need to improve on, and then just general company policy changes and things like that. You are paid during that time. all the staff meetings that I've been to, we always eat as well. So that's something to look forward to if you're into that. So is the job right for you? This is a really important slide to me. Actually, this is probably the most important slide to me because I want every person to evaluate whether this is something they can see fitting into their life. So can you work these long hour shifts? Can you balance it with school? Are you interested in working in a high stress environment? These are really great questions to start asking yourself about the medical field in general. Scribing is a great way to kind of decide where you fit into the medical field. So, if you're concerned about the long hours of scribing, let's also start being concerned about, where do I fit in this bigger picture of things? The high stress environment, I mentioned that, holidays. So if you work in an ER, you're going to work holiday shifts. The ER does not close during holidays and things like that. I typically will work, Christmas or Thanksgiving, every other year I'll switch between the two of those. We work together as a team to get those covered so that not one person is working all the fun holidays, but we do expect that everybody works 2 holidays a year to balance that out. Night shifts for ER positions, again, the ER does not close at night, and so scribes work at night as well. So that's going to be something that we will expect of you if we put you in an ER. Balancing it with exams, I talked about that, and then long hours. The difficult training process we talked about earlier. And then the 36 hours plus is if you are choosing to be full-time. Most students are looking more at part-time, but if you're interested in full-time, there's going to be some benefits associated with that. And I think the next slide has those on it. There we have it. So compensation, $8 an hour minimum starting during the training process. Now, if your state minimum wage is higher than that, we'll go with state minimum wage, obviously. Virginia's minimum wage is like $7.25-ish, around that. So we pay a little bit higher than minimum wage there, but it just depends on your state. Again, I know we have some people joining from different areas. And then after the probationary period, that's going to be $10 an hour. Now, this is our base or minimum. This typically is where ER will start. Outpatient sites will tend to hire a little bit above that. So if pay is something that you're concerned about, definitely reach out to your representative in the area, or put your application in and have a conversation with us, because we do have positions that hire higher than that. And then full-time employee benefits, so paid time off, medical benefits are things that we offer anyone that's full-time. You also have access to medical benefits if you are part-time, working a certain number of hours a week. So I believe it's 30 plus hours a week. You can benefit from those benefits. And those would be the kind of compensation that we have there. And then throughout your training, like I mentioned before, you are paid during that time. So pre-employment requirements, this is pretty straightforward. If you've ever volunteered or worked in a hospital before, we want to make sure you're immunized, that we have a background check and things like that. We want to make sure that you are safe when you go into the hospital. You're not going to leave and get sick from something that you've been exposed to. Background checks, drug screen, because we are handling such sensitive information. We want to make sure that everyone has that. So every person will get these things done. Then we're going to have paperwork on both ends. So we're contractors for the sites that we work at. So we are going to have paperwork for the ScribeAmerica end, and then that hospital will have hospital-specific paperwork as well. So that will be very different, again, unique, dependent on the site. But you will expect lots of paperwork to be done. So make sure that you follow up with emails and phone calls. We try to streamline that as much as possible, but it can definitely be a lot. And what we offer. So this is my second favorite slide. I always love sharing the reasons why I personally love being a scribe. I have, like I said, scribed for 3 years in an ER. I have met some of the most inspiring individuals, not only among the doctors and the PAs or the nurses even. I've met these people that are my peers that I now see in medical school. So those are really inspiring to me. I also love that being a scribe gave me the opportunity to see where I fit into the medical field. I wasn't sure when I first went in if I was interested in PA versus nursing versus being a doctor. And so being able to see the different roles on hand was really, really helpful to me. I personally worked as a volunteer in an ER before that, and I also worked as an EMT before that. And so all of those experiences were great, but I don't think I ever really understood the medical field and how people work together as much as when I was a scribe, because we really are in it working with them. I also look back on everything that I knew and didn't know before scribing. And it's really impressive how much you learn and how quickly. It's your job, and so you're going in and doing your best every day, and so you really are gaining this extensive amount of knowledge. And I also know that when it comes to professional schools, when I plan on going to medical school in the future, that the recommendations that I can get, these people they know me better than pretty much any person that I've ever shadowed or anything like that. And so I'm really excited to be able to utilize them there. The other thing is the opportunity for growth. So you've heard through Saber and Jeremy's stories as well as mine, is that we really did start as base scribes and then kind of moved up. We really do utilize people within our company. We want to offer people that are interested in moving up in the chain of things the opportunity to do so. And so there is definitely the opportunity there. Our CEO, our COO, they all started out where you guys started out today. And so that's something that's really inspiring to me. I think that on the scale of companies, you really do see a lot of really young people jumping in and becoming managers. And so I think that's really cool. So what will help you succeed? I agree with this list. I'm not going to read through it or anything like that. I'm sure you guys can read through it. I do want to add on to here that it is really important to be open to failure. So you're going to have days where you walk into the ER and you just feel like your notes are perfect, or you walk in, during training and you feel like you've just given it your 100%, and they look at the notes and they're like, I don't really like that. So just be open to having moments where you feel like you gave it your all. And we're constantly learning and growing. There are still times where I hope that providers will tell me if they find an issue with my notes. It will make you better, but you do have to be open to those moments of the training process being difficult and being open to failure.
Yeah. Jeremy, did you want to add anything here with regards to kind of what will help these candidates be successful?
I think we lost him.
Okay. I think Brooke mentioned a very good point that you have to be kind of open to failure. And I guess the other thing I'd add on to that is not only, not only do you want to fail, but you want to learn, right? You want to actually have an action plan from those opportunities, because if you're getting the same feedback over and over again, if you're stumbling your feet over the same thing over and over again, but you're not growing, we're not really getting anywhere, right? So you want to learn from those experiences and grow from them, so that of course you can do your position the best, and you can kind of show your provider that I'm not, that I'm invested in my work, right? That you want to be here, and things of that nature. Another thing I would go ahead and mention here is it's pretty simple, but you need to be pretty computer proficient to work in this position. I wouldn't say you have to have like 50 words per minute or 60 words per minute. In general, it's a pretty, it sounds pretty easy, but you do have to be able to listen and type at the same time. And that goes along with, we'll teach you some of those skills in the classroom training phase, but at the core of it, you do need to be able to type pretty proficiently. And of course, if your laptop loses Wi-Fi, what do you do in that situation? If your site is more on paper charting than EMR charting, again, do you have good handwriting? Do you have the ability to take notes by hand and then maybe transfer them to paper? These are all things that are also going to be important to be considerate of. All right, and so that is the end of our presentation here today. So I guess we can, Wendell, and I think we can open it here for the group if you have any, if anyone here has any questions that Brooke, myself, and Jeremy can answer. So.
Okay, well, I'll start off. I have one. How do you determine what would be a good fit? Let's just say I've gone through the process. I'm getting ready to start with an orientation. How do you determine what type of facility I'm placed in?
Yeah, good question. So I would say this process really starts from the very beginning when even the candidates put it in an application. When they're putting in an application, you should be really, of course, being honest with your application, but you should be really showing us, kind of your writing skills in that, your availability, kind of your backgrounds, your experiences, what your long-term goals are. That really helps us determine kind of where the placement will be most ideal, whether it be in the emergency department or in the outpatient facilities. And of course, it's a little bit of a, more of a logistical thing here. But of course, your outpatient sites are going to be more of your Monday through Friday business hours, whereas your ER will need to be kind of your mixed bag of, weekdays, weekends, mornings, afternoons, evenings, overnights, and holidays. So if you're only available for one or the other, that kind of obviously helps us make our decision here a little bit easier. But I think Brooke would agree with me here is that fit is something that, we really do want to look for, right? We want to place our candidates in the most optimal environment to kind of maximize your talents and abilities. But again, I'd say all this starts from the very beginning when you are putting in an application with us.
Okay. One other question for you. If I am a current student and I'm enrolled in a program and I want to, let's just say that I only have to complete my externship, do you see this being a good opportunity as a allied healthcare student doing this simultaneously while, prior to me graduating?
I can answer this one. So I think that it really depends a little bit on the situation for how long they have to commit to the program. If we're looking at part-time, then we want to make sure that we have time to commit those 2 years to scribing. If we want more full-time hours, which it sounds like you're talking more of like a part-time when a student is balancing their externships and things like that, that would be more of what we're looking for part-time. So I would say that it really depends on the person. I personally have always worked and gone to school full-time concurrently. That doesn't mean that everyone can do that or should do that. I think that's something that needs to be a conversation, and that's something that I've had conversations with scribes, potential scribes in the past before as well. I love to sit down and talk with people and look at their schedules and see what other extracurriculars or what other jobs they're doing, and ask them those hard questions like, okay, so where are we sleeping this day? Or where are we eating this day? Or where are we spending time showering? Those kind of things that we need to consider. We think we can do it all. I think that being honest with yourself is one of the most difficult parts because we want to do it all. But I can definitely say from experience that it is possible.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that question is a lot of times our students are going through the program. They get to that point where they're ready to go out on an externship and they really don't know the type of environment. So they kind of rely on us to say, okay, you're going to go to externship here. I think with this opportunity and your extensive training, not only is it helpful in that it exposes them to healthcare facilities, but it also reinforces their classroom training even with your extensive training program. And I certainly see that being a benefit. And if I were a student, I probably would consider doing this when I get to that point in my, experience, my educational experience, that externship, selecting a position like this. What better exposure?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think personally, for me, I loved taking classes that I could kind of weave my previous medical knowledge of scribing into it. And so I would bring questions to the doctors that I work with, so we've got this EKG that we're studying in class. Can you tell me how this makes sense in your brain? And so being able to kind of blend classroom with working was really something, a huge benefit of this job for sure. And also finding out where you fit in the program of things. So do you see yourself working more with the nurses? Do you see yourself working more with the PAs? I think that was really beneficial for me as well.
Okay. So you absolutely see this program or this opportunity being a good fit across the board, from a medical assistant to a phlebotomist to an EKG technician.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
What about a medical biller and coder? I mean, that's what I had taken, but is that something that you think would be beneficial as well?
Yeah, I think that any person can come in, because we really do train people from the bottom up. So we will teach you everything we need you to know. I would say that working as a scribe, I've had people in business that have worked with us because our company allows you to kind of move up in the ranks of things. So I would say that really anything that you're interested in, you can find your niche as a scribe.
Okay.
And if I can piggyback on the medical billing and coding thing too, there's definitely some significant benefits to seeing how the clinical presentation translates to the ICD-10 format, which is radically different. As I'm sure if you've gotten a certificate or a training in medical billing and coding, you certainly understand. But seeing how a clinical presentation translates into some of those diagnoses and how that ends up being billed and whatnot, the firsthand experience there is likely invaluable for a long-term career.
That was a very good comment, and thank you. I appreciate that, because you're correct. That is something that is that would be very beneficial. Also, I'm in Harrisonburg, Virginia, so I mean, y'all do service this area too as well, correct?
If you put in an application, I can touch base with you one-on-one for that region. Absolutely.
Okay.
I put in one for Louisville, but it's got Fairdale, Louisville. Is that also Louisville region, or is there another one for Louisville region, or did I do the right thing?
Can you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
I put for the medical scribe job. I just graduated with medical billing coding diploma, and I put in for the medical scribe job. It said Louisville, and it said / Fairdale. I'm real close to Fairdale. Does it matter? Is that the only one for Louisville?
You said Chesterville area, that area?
No, Louisville. Louisville. Louisville.
Okay, yeah, Louisville, Kentucky.
Yes.
Yeah, when you put in your application, you're more than welcome to apply in that area. And then again, I will go ahead and leave my contact information here today. And if you want to contact me, I will make sure that you get into the appropriate contact with the people in Kentucky.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so how do we apply with you guys?
Yeah, good question. So I did go ahead for our Zoom conference. I put the application link in that chat box there. So it should be a direct link to the application portal. It's an online application. And then you can search on the left side by full-time, part-time, by state, and things of that nature. And so I would ask that, again, you apply to where you want to apply to. And if you want to follow up with me after today, I can get you into contact with your region-specific supervisor, whether it is Brooke and I for Virginia, or if it's Jeremy for Tennessee, or anyone else in the country. Go ahead, apply where you want to apply. But if you want to kind of get that that direct contact with that supervisor for your region, you can go ahead and shoot me an email here, and I'll go ahead and leave my contact information for Wendelin after today's event.
Okay, do you have an email address I can email you?
Yes, I will go ahead and put it in the chat box here before you all.
I don't have a clue what this chat box thing is. I have to have a 3-year-old where I'm at, because my internet's very spotty.
Okay, I will make sure that both my contact and the application link go out to everyone by Wendelin, if that's okay with you, Wendelin.
That is, and I was just going to add in there, in the invite that you received, there is a link in there that's directly to the ScribeAmerica website, but I would ask that you apply through Career Services. We'd like to review your resume, of course, prior to sending, making sure that all of the information is there, it's accurate, it's up to date. So
right.
You can follow up with me.
How do I get in Career Services since I've graduated?
Career Services is here even after you graduate. You can reach us at the same email address, careerservices.an.edu.
careerservices@an.edu.
That is correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
I previously, because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make this meeting due to work schedules and stuff, I previously put in my application about 2 days ago. Does that make a difference? Or, because I'm in Tennessee, so I didn't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine. As long as you have applied. I think, Jeremy, are you able to join us again? See, his name is on.
I'm still here. My audio is cutting in and out.
Okay, gotcha. Did you want to, I guess, field this question for our Tennessee applicant here?
Yes, could I hear it again, please?
I applied a couple days ago through the site that was on our Canvas website. And so I didn't know, since with us doing the career fair today and me applying a couple days ago, if that mattered.
Oh, I understand. That shouldn't necessarily affect the eligibility of your application. Which market did you apply for? Was it somewhere in Knoxville? Was it Nashville?
Well, I'm in Memphis.
Memphis, wonderful. That's my hometown. So Memphis is great. I can take down your name and mention that we spoke to you here. That might speed up the interview and whatnot. But yeah, Danielle Williams. I'll let my other hiring assistants know.
Okay, thank you.
That you spoke with us. But yeah, your application should be just fine.
I have a question. I filled out my application already online, and I got an email with a like a questionnaire afterwards that I filled out. Is that supposed to be the way it goes?
Yes, that's supposed to be the way it goes, and then you'll just wait for that person after they receive your reply to kind of follow up with you with the next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Saber, how long does it take for this whole process to do before we get started on our classroom work and things of that nature?
Yeah, good question. So generally after you put an application, the caveat to all this, of course, is the region you're applying to, whether or not it's a high volume application region or if it's a low volume application region. So generally, if it's a little bit more of a moving application pool, you're going to get a lot more of a quicker follow-up. I know for me, kind of in Northern Virginia and the DC region, a lot of people here. So usually it takes me about to kind of address an application. After that, you will get a screening questions, as Lori mentioned here. And then after you fill that out, your hiring associate will either choose to follow up with an interview offer, or they may choose to have some follow-up questions with you. Generally, after you interview, you get an offer or decline within 48 hours. And then after that, you're going to have another brief meeting just to verify some IDs, go over expectations, hand you off to your site. And then really after that point, that's when you're going to start to do classroom training, the 90-day probationary period. So application phase, I would say altogether, we can kind of go from start to finish within 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, I did the questionnaire yesterday. So when should I hear something back, and will it come in an email?
I would say give it about 1 week. And if it has not, I'll go ahead and note down your name today. So I'll make sure the proper supervisor reaches back out to you, Lori.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, Saber, my other question is, where do we take our classroom instruction? I'm in Harrisonburg, and if it's in Newport News, I am probably about 3 hours away.
No, understood, of course. So again, this is going to depend on kind of where you are across the country. Some of our regional managers have elected to do classroom training in person. So you will need to, within your region, go to like a community library or one of the hospital classrooms to do your classroom training. If you're in a region that does not do in-person training, you're going to be in a region that does virtual classroom training. And that's very much like this, where it's very convenient. It's all done through like a Zoom conference or Google Hangout platform, where you will be taught the material by a live instructor. It's not like it's a pre-recorded session. So it depends on kind of which region you're in and kind of what that president prefers to do for the region.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, can anybody hear me?
Yes, you're good.
My name is Nabasha Tucker. I'm in Danville, Virginia. I just recently graduated from American National. Okay, do y'all do it in Danville?
Danville. So did you give your resume or contact info to Wendelin for today?
She has my resume. I went on to the application before a couple months ago before I graduated.
Okay, yeah, so I believe Danville is one of the markets where we have an application pool for. So again, if you are able to view the chat box for today, you can see that on the left side, again, you'll click Virginia, and then it will open up a bunch of cities, so you will apply to the Danville market.
Yeah, I've already done that.
Okay, great. So then again, you're just in the phase where you're waiting for that recruiter or that hiring associate to get back to you with those screening questions. So I would say just be a little bit patient with us.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, the hiring associates in general are a little bit of a newer position. And so some of those areas, I think in the western part of Virginia, we don't currently have coverage for as far as hiring associates. That doesn't mean that nobody's looking at your application. So we do have chief scribes and things like that in the area that will be in that application pool and reaching out to candidates that they're interested in. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And I just want to add, I am really impressed with the layout and the turnaround time. A lot of times, my students and my graduates know you go on an interview and it's weeks before you hear something back. So at least there is an initial acknowledgement, not to mention there's follow-up after that. So this is a very process that looks like it's laid out. It should flow as long as you're doing what you're supposed to on your end. It looks like they have a process in place to not make this a long process to actually get you onboarded.
Great.
Absolutely.
My other question is too, we get into this, and if we are not progressing as we should, do you guys offer additional training for that? Do you help us out with that, or what?
I can take this one. So it really depends on the case scenario here. So do we think that you can still progress eventually? Do we think that you just need a little bit of extra help, or do we think that we've kind of reached a point where we don't think that there's going to be improvement? So it really just depends on, do we see you putting that effort in, and are you improving? If you're improving, if you're expressing to us that you're working really hard, you really want some extra help, the managers are there to help you get that help. So I've seen people that are on clinical training that get pulled back to classroom training for an extra classroom training day to go over some material that might be helpful. That's something that when I was a chief scribe, it really meant a lot to me, that if somebody expressed the need for help, that we were going to be there to help you get through the process.
So it's not like if we screw up, you kick us to the curb. I mean, you do.
That's not the process here. No, absolutely. And especially so Saber and me, I know from the hiring associate perspective, is that we're not going to hire anyone that we don't think has the potential to be a great scribe. So once we've hired you, we're going to invest in you to make sure that you get.
So do you get paid for the training that you do while you're learning?
Yep. Yes, you do.
Okay.
You get paid for any time that you're sitting, in front of a screen, listening to teaching. You're going to get paid for time if you go in person and meet in a library or things like that. Study time isn't compensated for because that's going to very widely based on individuals, but you will get paid for the time that you're actually sitting in class.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hey, I'm Jennifer Tucker. I'm from Danville. I'm asking because I work another job, and I just want to know, how does it fit in around the job I'm already working, or do I need to just not work another job and just commit to this? I'm not really sure how y'all work it out.
So it really depends on the circumstance. I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have anything else to say? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. So it really depends on the circumstance. What area are we thinking of hiring you for as specifically like ER versus outpatient? So outpatient is going to have very stringent hours, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So if you're already working a job during that time, and that's the position that we're considering you for, then you wouldn't be able to obviously work at the same time. If you're looking more at an ER position, those staff night shifts, weekends, and so they're really flexible around schedules. That's why I've always personally worked ER, because I've been a student throughout my time as a scribe, and so I've been able to balance working and also going to school. So that was really important to me. So I wouldn't say that necessarily we require that you drop jobs or anything like that. We do think that the training process is extensive, so you do want to make sure that you have time to study. I tell people to take it like a college class. So take it.
I was going to say on the application it shows 12-hour increments. Is that what we do? 12-hour increments?
It depends again on the site. So every site is very different.
Okay.
At ER, you're going to work longer hours. Most of the hours in the ER are going to be 8 to 12-hour shifts, typically more like 10 to 12-hour shifts. It really depends again on the site, because every site is super unique.
I have an appointment. Are we finished the main basic parts of it?
I'm sorry?
Are we finished the most important parts of this? I have an appointment and need to go.
Yeah. If you need to drop off, you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
We're recording it, so it'll be available to view.
Okay, and are you going to send me the way to contact and to fill out the application and stuff?
You already have that, but sure, I'll be happy to send it again. Who am I speaking with?
This is Amy.
Amy.
Custer, yes.
Okay, Amy, I'll get it out to you.
Thank you. My internet here is very spotty, so I probably have not gotten it yet.
Okay, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is Navash Tucker again. Okay, I'm working two part-time jobs. I'm looking for a job that I can get full-time so I can drop both of these jobs.
I would say that we definitely have positions for full-time versus part-time. I don't think there's any areas in which we're not interested in full-time hires. That's always a great thing for us to hear, because we definitely have positions for full-timers. So I would say that there's definitely the opportunity.
Yeah, that's what I want, full-time.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, me too, because right now I'm working two part-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Just to even make it.
I understand.
We understand. That's why you're here today. So the process, the ball is in your court now. So we have been told what the application process is, and as long as you're following through, it sounds like that they're following through on their end as well.
That's great.
All right. Any additional questions? Looks like we're right at 12 o'clock. Perfect timing. So the next step in this process is, Saber, for them to apply if they've not already applied online. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I know you mentioned the preference to, if they haven't applied, going through the ANU Career Services just to make sure everything is all tidied before they apply. They're more than welcome to do that. Absolutely.
Okay.
And then you get a little email with the questionnaire. That's right. That's the next step.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's where I'm at now. I ain't got nothing else since. So I was just checking.
Absolutely.
Well, they'll need a little bit of turnaround time now.
Right. Yeah, I understand that.
A lot of
I
people
understand.
that, like,
They are considering other candidates in addition to ANU
Right.
graduates.
Right.
to get through my inbox every day.
Ms. Larkin.
Yes, Ms. Tucker.
This is Navash again.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you send the link again? Jennifer hadn't seen the link.
I sure will.
Yeah, and send me the link again too.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Got you on my list. Okay.
You all have a video on your website too that I watched. It pretty much describes how it works and how it all unfolds. That was pretty helpful.
Good. Cool. I'm glad you found that helpful.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I am going to say, if no one else has any questions, you know how to contact your career services team. In the invite that you received, there is a link for ScribeAmerica along with a brochure that tells you, gives you an overview of the position. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to me. Please reach out to me prior to applying on the website. Once again, we'd like to review your resume and make sure that all the information on there is correct. And we are putting our best foot forward for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Saber. I will turn it back over to you if you have any last words, and we're open.
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess before we wrap up here, I'm sure as Brooke and I have said, this is a fantastic opportunity. We recognize that we are an entry-level position, but you have so many opportunities here for growth, for education, for some people, getting a full-time benefits, things of that nature. So definitely, I encourage you to read through our application, read through our website, and if you feel this is a great fit, I welcome an application. And like I said, regardless of where you are in the country, I can be your primary point of contact. I will make sure you get proper contact, whether it be for Virginia or the 49 other states. So, leave it with that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. Well, I want to thank ScribeAmerica team. We are looking forward to a partnership together. We know that we will give you great candidates, and thank you. Thank you for reaching out.
Thank you.
Of course. Everyone have a great weekend.
Okay.
You too.
Same.
All right, nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
You do the
All right.
same.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.